Okay, we are back. Apologies for that. It was a shame because we had boxing on the edge on. We're having a good talk about the boxing this weekend, and my stream decided to stop cooperating, which is a shame because it was a good convo. But nevertheless, here we are. Going to go on for a little bit longer, and hopefully we can get the chat full. I say full. Nobody was in the chat hardly. But here we are again. Let's just check if everything is working now. Okay, the chat looks as if it's functioning. To the one person in the chat, if you can hear what I'm saying, please just give me a sign. Please give me a sign. Apologies for this, people. I'm no tech whiz. Okay, so I'm just going to read some headlines. Joyce, 271.4 pounds against Joseph Parker, 255.25 pounds. I believe that this is actually a career heaviest for both men. So both Joyce and both Joseph Parker coming in at career heaviest. I don't know. I look at the pictures of them and I saw the weigh-in itself. I don't find that too concerning. Both of them look like they're in good shape. They're both big men, naturally. They're never going to be cut up and shredded and vascular like other guys like Anthony Joshua or anyone like that. But they look strong. They look strong. They look energetic. And I think this fight is just going to come down to styles. And it really is, it puts things into perspective because I know how these two fighters who I'm going to talk about are different. They're different people. But if you compare Joyce to Anthony Joshua, as soon as he starts to get into the high 240s or into the 250s, he's massive and bulky and ripped and vascular, but he looks like, in terms of his performance, he looks sluggish and slow and lethargic. Whereas Joyce can look 271 pounds and look like he's fight ready and is probably going to have a good engine tomorrow night. Obviously, we have to reserve judgment a little bit until we see the fight, but it just goes to show how fighters can be the same height, 6'6" in this case, but have completely different bodily makeup in terms of muscle density, bone density, the natural amount of mass that they can have in terms of muscle and whatnot. So interesting weights from both Joyce and Joseph Parker. I don't think it's going to play that much of a role in the fight. I think Joseph Parker will probably sense early on that he can't outstrength Joyce and will look to use some mobility and try and catch Joyce coming in, make him look a bit clumsy. Maybe Joseph Parker's weight can prove to be a bit of a hindrance. I'm not sure. Or maybe he doesn't do that. Maybe he just holds his feet and he looks to sting Joyce as much as he can and stand his ground. Interesting fight. Who knows what's going to happen? But I feel like we've spoken about this fight enough for now. Let's see what else we can find in the headlines. David Benavidez blasts Canelo Alvarez for not fighting him. Yeah, Team Benavidez, Benavidez and his dad, they seem to have been quite vocal, certainly recently, about Canelo Alvarez in that fight. They clearly want it. And I think it would be a shame if Canelo Alvarez didn't look to make that fight. Oh, Adrian, you missed the weights. So Joe Joyce weighed in at 271.4 and Joseph Parker weighed in at 255 and a quarter. So career heaviest for both guys. But yeah, when it comes to Benavidez, I think I'm in the camp of people who thinks that he has done enough to win that fight. Has Benavidez set the world on fire with his performances? No, but you know he was WBC super middleweight champion, and he's looked pretty good. I think it's fair to say he's got some talent. And this stuff from Canelo about not fighting Mexicans because you know we represent the same country. That is straight BS. That is bollocks. Oh, I'm not going to fight this guy because we're from the same country. That's nonsense. And it's contradictory to what Canelo Alvarez has done in the past anyway, because he fought Josecito Lopez back in, what, 2012? He also fought Chavez Jr. much more recently in 2017. It was only 5 years ago. But he wants to talk about, no, I don't fight Mexicans. That stinks. That stinks to high heavens. And I think the reason why he's saying this stuff is because I think partly Canelo is kind of up in his feelings a little bit. Maybe he still feels like he doesn't get the respect he deserves from the fans or the boxing establishment, which I'm not sure if I'd agree with. I think Canelo very much is the darling of world boxing right now, or at least boxing in the States. Fans, disregard what the fans say. There are always going to be fans that you can't please. But I suspect it's because he sees Benavidez as a threat. And I think that's very much grounded in reality. I do think Benavidez is a tough fight for Canelo and would prove to be a challenge, to say the least. I wouldn't be surprised if that fight got made and most people picked Benavidez. I could understand that. And I might even be tempted to pick Benavidez myself. But it depends. Canelo looks as if he's going to take a break right now. I did a video, in case you didn't see it. It was Canelo, and basically asking the question, is Canelo coming towards the end of his career? And personally, I don't think he is. I think he's certainly in the latter stage of his career, but he's still got quite a bit left to give. I think we're starting to see the effects of Canelo's activity more so these days, because Canelo, you can watch this video for yourself and see the points I made, but Canelo has been active. For someone who fights at the highest level, he fights often. If we just go through Canelo's record on BoxRec, it's quite extraordinary, because it's common for guys like Canelo of that ilk to fight once a year, twice a year tops. Canelo fought in September. 4 months earlier, he fought Bivol in May. 6 months earlier, he fought Plant in November. And then 6 months before that, he fought Billy Joe Saunders. 3 months before that, he fought Yildirim. 3 months before that, he fought Callum Smith. 13 months before that, he fought Kovalev. But then 6 months before that, Danny Jacobs. 6 months before that, Rocky Fielding. And then 3 months before that, it's Gennady Golovkin. And so that is, and people are going to say, oh, but some of those fights were gimme fights, like the Yildirim fight. And yeah, I get that. But if you look at the rest of those fights, and maybe the Rocky Fielding fight, you've got Golovkin, Bivol, Plant, Saunders, Yildirim, Smith, Kovalev, Jacobs, Rocky Fielding, then Gennady Golovkin before that. That is, that is some resume of work. And it's not necessarily the fights themselves. Canelo does a good job of not taking that much damage, but it's the training and the preparation and the lead up. That's what can really take out of you. So if you're having these fights, and sometimes there's only 3 months, 3 to 6 months in between them. A training camp a lot of the time is 2 months. So that recovery window gets shortened even more. But I've touched on that in the video. Canelo Alvarez, I think, forget about the Dimitri Bivol fight. Go for someone else, like a Benavidez. You know, you're still super middleweight, undisputed super middleweight champion. Defend it against someone who has a claim to the WBC belt. Because yes, I know Benavidez, he lost that fight, he lost that belt on the scales, but you know, it's like when Usyk became cruiserweight champion, undisputed champion. People still said that Tony Bellew, he still had a claim to one of those belts because he didn't lose it in the ring. It's the same thing with Benavidez, in my opinion. And it's a good fight, I think. So, yeah, Canelo, I'm not impressed by that, oh, he's a Mexican, I'm not going to fight him. That's BS. But at the same time, being objective, as Adrian says, it's incredible. It's incredible body of work. So credit to Canelo for that. What else is there? Let's have a look. Some news on Wilder Helenius. I think that fight's pretty straightforward, assuming Wilder isn't dealing with too many demons from his 2 fights with Fury. I expect him to deal with Helenius. It's going to be a matter of how spectacular does Deontay Wilder look. I think he's going to look okay, though. Deontay Wilder, as deluded as he may be, that delusion does afford him some mental strength in a way. So I suspect that he still believes his hype. He still believes he's the real deal. And I think he's going to be glad to get back in the ring. He looks like, you know, there's some training videos of Wilder. He looks like he's enjoying boxing. And that's the most important thing. That what's a lot of the time it makes for the most dangerous fighters, guys who enjoy training. They enjoy getting into the ring. They enjoy immersing themselves in boxing. And I'm looking forward to seeing Deontay Wilder back. As much of a buffoon as he is and an absolute idiot at times, you can't deny that a Deontay Wilder fight night, it's always got the potential for entertainment. It's thrills and spills. And it's going to be good to see him fight someone other than Fury because that saga's gone on for long enough. Stevenson versus Cesar. Interesting fight. I haven't really watched much of either of these guys recently, just because I just don't find them that entertaining. I have a lot of admiration for their skill and their ability, but neither of them is a particularly devastating puncher. They don't. I don't know. With Stevenson, I was really impressed when I saw him get really started in his career. But I don't know. I feel like Stevenson's maybe fallen into that trap of, I call it the young American prospect trap, where there's a lot of posturing in the ring, but there's not the most amount of proactivity. I don't know what it is. It's like, I think it's a symptom of the us being in the post Mayweather era now, where a lot of these guys, they want to use a lot of the same technique as Mayweather, but they don't understand. They don't have the IQ and experience of Floyd to be in that position. You know, towards the end of Floyd's career, he wasn't the most active in terms of pushing a fight, but he was. It's because he was in that position because he had gone through his career fighting a different style. You know, the pretty boy Floyd days. He was dynamic. A young Floyd Mayweather really was a marvel, and even an old Floyd Mayweather. People think that I dislike or hate Floyd Mayweather because I criticize him. No, I criticize every fighter. Floyd Mayweather was a genius. I just think that towards the end of his career, he picked his fights very carefully and was selling us short a little bit because there are a lot of good fights that could have been made, which Floyd Mayweather probably would have won. But I'm not into that talk of, oh, I'm going to beat this guy, so I don't need to fight him. I'd beat him anyway. That's BS. I hate that. And that's what Floyd was doing. And I'd criticize him for that. TMT, how are you doing, my friend? Good to have you here as always. Yeah, how are you doing this Friday evening? Mr. Relax, the man himself. Hi, did Takam just have a fight? Who did Takam fight? He did. He fought recently. Yes, he fought Makhmudov. I think he's Chechen. Yeah, Arslanbek Makhmudov. Yeah, he fought him. That was a close fight by all accounts. I haven't been able to find a copy of it, but yeah, Mr. Relax Takam fought recently against Makhmudov, went the distance, and it's been in camp with Joyce as well. There's some footage of them sparring on BT on their YouTube channel. So Takam looking to be active as always. Yes. Where was I though? Yeah, Conceição versus Shakur Stevenson. I'd pick Stevenson to win this fight. I think he's just a superior fighter. Maybe struggling at the weight. He says, because obviously Stevenson was overweight by nearly 2 pounds, so he's going to have to vacate his belt because he didn't even attempt to weigh in at the correct weight. So the belts are only on the line for Conceição. And people were saying in the comments, like, you got to give Conceição props because there was a whole Oscar Valdez situation. I think Valdez tested positive for some performance enhancers. I can't really remember that saga. And now this, Shakur Stevenson coming in overweight. And Conceição, I found this out, it's on Boxing Scene. If Conceição wanted to drop out of the fight, he still would have been paid in full. But obviously, he does want to do that. I'm sure he fancies his chances and he wants to get his money and have a chance at winning the belts. Conceição winning, would it surprise me? Not really, but I just think that Stevenson, he's sharp. He's a good boxer in his own right. Conceição, I feel like he has a few limitations that maybe Stevenson can capitalize on. Mostly Conceição's seems to be quite heavy on his front foot. Now, he's got a ramrod jab, Conceição, very good jab, but he doesn't really know how to bring his weight backwards. So I feel like sometimes he can get caught coming forwards. And I'm not sure how much success he's going to have with that jab against Shakur Stevenson, because Stevenson, he's got good lead hand control. He's got a lot of experience, being a southpaw, fighting at high level. So I think Stevenson, I think he might just outwork Conceição, just nick too many rounds and get a decision. And obviously, it's in his hometown as well, so it's another thing in Shakur Stevenson's favor. We have Maxi Hughes versus Kid Galahad this weekend. Can't say I'm particularly excited for that one. Galahad is a fighter who I actually quite like Kid Galahad. I think he has a style that I enjoy watching sometimes. I didn't like, and I don't think anyone liked his fight against Josh Warrington. That was an absolute stinker. But his fight against Claudio Marrero, I think that was a good advert for Kid Galahad. I feel like he was able to display a lot of his skills, his finishing instinct. Maxi Hughes, though, I've only seen him once, I believe, and that was against Straffon. Giovanni the Straffon. So, yeah. Let me get Maxi Hughes. His what do you call it? His record up. Navigating the old box rec. Okay, I'm in the wrong weight class. That's great. Good start. Featherweight, right? Because this is for the IBO featherweight title, I believe. And I suppose there's some interest around this fight because Galahad got smoked by Kiko Martinez, so maybe Maxi Hughes can gun for a stoppage, but 5 knockouts out of 25 fights. Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath. Yeah. I think I might have seen just the Giovanni Straffon fight. And that wasn't particularly good. Straffon was one of those fighters who came in, caused a bit of an upset, and And then Matchroom got him on a bunch of shows trying to, or at least one show trying to sell him maybe as a bit of a boogeyman or a test. Nah. Maxi Hughes. Who would I pick to win though? Maybe Kid Galahad. I don't know. This fight could be a draw for all I know. Haven't seen enough of Maxi Hughes. And I think Kid Galahad's maybe on the slide a little bit. So yeah. But moving on. I'm probably only going to go until like 6:30, guys. Just so you're aware, this won't be the longest one because we did have an attempt earlier. But people can watch this one back. Oh, we have. I was going to do a video on this one, but the undercard for the Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. fight was announced the other day. Was it yesterday? And I was actually checking it out a couple of days ago, and I saw that there was only one fight announced, and it was, I think her name's Ellie Scottney, her fight. There was, okay, so what, we're nearly 2 weeks out from the fight, and only one undercard fight had been announced. And then, of course, the rest came through. And man, this sucks. I mean, I didn't really expect that much, but I mean, to be fair, I knew it was going to be absolute dross when I saw that it was like just over 2 weeks out, and the undercard still hadn't been announced. But yeah, Mary Romero versus Ellie Scottney for the EBU European Super Bantamweight. Women's super Bantamweight boxing. I'll pass, thank you. Felix Cash, in good, entertaining fighter, going up against Connor Coyle, 17-0. I never seen Connor Coyle fight, I don't think. I don't recognize any of the names on his resume. His last opponent, which was 6 days ago. Okay, so he last fought on Saturday the 17th, was 37-31. Silverio Ortiz. And that was in Florida. Yeah, like Connor Coyle, who is that? Maybe he's a good fighter, I don't know. I doubt it though. 17-0, 17 knockouts. Don't recognize anyone on his resume. So I'm expecting Felix Cash to have a relatively easy time with that one. Galal Yafai, 2-0. Fighting for the WBC International Flyweight Championship against Gohan. Isn't that Dragon Ball Z? Gohan Rodriguez Garcia, who is 12-1 with 1 KO. Wow. Great going, Matchroom. Yeah. So we have a 2-0 fighter versus a 12-1-1 fighter. Garbage. Harlem Eubank. I like Harlem Eubank. He's quite athletic and exciting. He's 15-0, but he's going in against David Martin Campillo, 11-3-1 in a 6-rounder. Then we have Chloe Watson 3-0 versus Nancy Franco, who is 19-17-2 in a 6-rounder. Shannon Courtney, everybody's favorite, 7-2 in against Gemma Rueg, 5-4. And that fight the rounds for that one haven't even been scheduled. And then the cherry on top, Lyndon Arthur versus TBA, after Lyndon Arthur fought on the weekend. And that is pay-per-view. Oh, gosh, pull the other one. And I think we have to factor in as well that the main event is hardly marquee. It's a bit of a circus type fight. You have Chris Eubank Jr. 32-2 versus Conor Benn 21-0. And there's nothing on the line other than bragging rights. Could you even say bragging rights? Because realistically, the bragging rights are only on the line for Conor Benn. If he wins, he can say that he beat Chris Eubank Jr., someone who's 2 weight classes above him. Chris Eubank Jr. can't brag after this fight. So they needed a strong undercard to to give this thing some more, some more meat to put on the bones. But this is terrible. This is terrible. It's like if you take away the main event and just look at the rest of the card, it's like a next gen show with Felix Cash and Galal Yafai and Harlem Eubank and Shannon Courtney. It's a next gen show with a freak show fight at the top of it. It's really a shame, but I didn't plan to pay for it. I'm not going to pay for it. Am I still going to watch it? Yeah, I think I will. But it'd be one of those where you want to watch it with friends just so you can talk through the entire undercard until you get to the main event. Watch the main event and go separate ways. Mr. Relax, well, firstly, Mr. Relax, undercard is terrible. I think it's unanimous. And I usually get hate. A lot of people, when I do videos about undercards, they say, oh, but so-and-so is a good fighter. He's on the undercard. This is a great fight. And I'm thinking, like, if you enjoy this undercards, power to you. I wish I could, but I can't. I don't like it. I don't think it's worth the money. I'm not going to pay for it. And I'm just going to get through it to get to the main event. But yeah, people are so sensitive these days. You can't criticize anything in boxing. Rivas versus Rozanski. Rozanski. I think I saw that fight listed, but I don't know who Rozanski is. So, is he any good, Mr. Relax? Do you know anything about him? If so, maybe you can signpost me to a good advert for Rozanski or something. Oscar Rivas, yeah, he's got his limitations, but he's quite explosive. He likes to get stuck in. Is that at Bridgerweight? I'm assuming it is, because Rivas seemed quite keen on sticking at Bridgerweight and seeing what he can do there. But yeah, maybe I'll keep an eye out for that one. TMT, don't worry, Eubank will brag to the end of his life, nevertheless, if he wins. You know what, TMT, I think you may be right. All this talk about, Eubank only being 60% and he has to win this fight. If he doesn't, he should retire. All that being said, I wouldn't put it past Eubank Jr. when the fight is all said and done and he's beaten Conor Benn, that he still uses it as leverage in fights to say, oh, I've beaten this guy, I've beaten that guy, I've beaten Conor Benn. I still see Eubank Jr. doing that. As corny and as just low as that would be, I wouldn't put it past him. And speaking of which, getting on to the fight itself, Hatman did the video the other day, I think it was yesterday, about Chris Eubank Jr. He's been eating in loads of very fancy places, eating cake, eating all kinds of luxury meals, and he brought up the question, which I think is on everyone's mind to some degree, is Eubank Jr. even attempting to make the weight? Because I think the closer this fight gets, I think it's likely that he just concedes the fines and just pays them. I think that's what Eubank Jr. is going to do. Because was it? I may be wrong, but is it for every pound above 157 Eubank Jr. weighs in, he has to pay 100 grand, 100 grand for every pound. 100 grand to Chris Eubank Jr. I don't think is very much at all. This guy is minted. So I suspect that he might just pay for the extra pounds. But people say that I think there's a stipulation in the contract that if Conor Benn is unhappy with the weight that Eubank Jr. has come in at, he's got an opportunity to leave the fight. But I don't think Conor Benn's going to do that. I think he loves fighting, and I don't think he wants to disappoint fans or the fans that are interested in this fight. I think he's going to go through with it regardless. And I think Eubank Jr. might understand that too. And he'll just come in at whatever weight he wants and just pay the fines. Because I'm not sure how much he's being paid for this fight. It's got to be millions, several million, I'd imagine. So what's a couple of 100 grand? I'm sure that he already has a couple of 100 grand to spare already. So that's that. Mr. Relax says, I think it was the Spilka last fight versus Rozanski. Okay. I'll check it out. I'll check it out. As I said, I don't know Rozanski, but I know Spilka. Um, not the cream of the crop by any stretch, but he what did I'm assuming Rozanski beat Spilka. Um, but yeah, I'll see if I can find something out about this Rozanski's character. All right, folks. Heading towards 6:30. I don't think I'm going to go for too much longer because I'm getting kind of hungry now, and we did get started at 5 o'clock. But I've covered some things I wanted to cover. Any last questions before we close up? Anything you guys want to talk about? If not, I think I will take my leave and get some food in me. All right, Adrian, have a good weekend, bro, and enjoy the fights. You too, my friends. I hope you have a good, relaxing weekend, and hopefully the fights are worth the wait. And yeah, I suspect though, I suspect that at least Joseph Parker versus Joe Joyce. I think that's going to be somewhat a spectacle while it lasts. I think it's going to be an entertaining fight. TMT, I'll see you soon, my friend. Thank you to yourself and some of the other usual suspects for locking in and joining me this Friday evening. But I'm going to call it time there, people. I wish all of you a good weekend, and hopefully these fights are entertaining. So I'll catch you in the next live, guys. And to anyone who watches this back, I hope this was a good half an hour stream hangout. So yeah, until next time, people, all the best.